research and started a publishing company. And Paul has is a success story, and I'm gonna continue to support him and all the other authors that I work with across our nice to meet everybody.
Yeah. That's just super dope. Came up from Houston this past week for 2 book releases. One is my homie Pierre Amore. He released his book called Field Notes for Growing Artists. And he's joining us. Yeah, he hosts this like cipher event called Restoring the Feeling in Somerville. If you're into the hip hop scene, it's a great space to kind of go and meet some folks. But he's also spent some time back and forth between here and Belgium. And so he's done a bunch of kind of hip hop educational workshops overseas. And when I told him I was coming to his class, I was like, it just makes sense, you know, for you to kind of tag along and to join us too. And so it's another one of the books that Des has helped publish, and it's a magic book that writes itself. Yeah, and so it's pretty cool. I'll turn it back over.
And now I would like for us to go around and just talk about, state your name or how you want to be addressed. And I'd like you to also say what your principal instrument is and what interests you about hip hop. Okay.
My name's Jude. Principal instruments, drums. The history of hip hop definitely interests me. Just trying to go back to the beginning and see where it all came from, all the influences.
Gotcha.
And where are you from?
Scotland.
Fire. Yeah.
And your brother does what, since we're doing it?
Oh, he's a producer in London.
Oh,
And
dope.
you produce what huge artist?
His name's Dave.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and the album that just came out there, the boy who played the harp, he was producer on that.
Fire. That's dope.
Story out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Shafali, but I go by Chef.
Mhm.
So a little bit about me, I'm a producer slash DJ.
Mhm.
So I feel like what interests me about hip hop in general is just like the production behind it and like beat making and sampling and all that.
Mhm.
That plus the history of course. So
Mhm.
yeah, there's a bunch of elements that like you need to be
Dope.
Where are you from, or what do you represent? Where do you represent?
I hate it. I'm from Arizona. Not proud of it, but it's okay.
It's cool.
Yeah.
My name is Fernando. I'm a guitar principal. I am from Mexico. And my interest with hip hop, I'm in general like a massive history buff for like contemporary music history.
Mhm.
And you know, hip hop has gone like such a long way into pushing into where we are today.
Mhm.
And outside of that, I've just been like a fan of the genre for maybe most of my life at this point. Get particularly like close with it on during the pandemic ever since.
Mhm.
Inspired producer as well. Always a winner.
I got you. Where in Mexico?
I am from Puebla.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, my fiance's from Guanajuato.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's dope. Appreciate you.
Just gonna sit in the cipher.
Oh yeah.
My name is Toki Rattle from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I moved out to Boston about 8 years ago. I work at Berklee College of Music. I like to write rhymes. What did my boy Evan say? Don't worry if I write checks, I write rhymes.
I got you.
I make beats. I work with community organizations.
Mhm.
I'm chair of the department, professional music. I work with the organization that you helped hook me up with, Bams Fest, Lost Army Soul Festival.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, what interests me about hip hop is the ability to bring people from all across the world together to
Bless you.
to express, to get free, and to speak to some of the issues that get ignored, swept under the rug, or allowed to fester until we speak up loudly and aggressively
Mhm.
to make change.
Mhm. So.
My name is Vanessa. I am from the greatest state, New Jersey.
All right.
I got you.
I'm a vocalist, and I think what really interests me about hop is like the emotion, but such a specific emotion that you can like that you can't get from any other genre. Whereas like you go to rock and you can feel so many different types of way, but like hip hop always. Not saying that it's like always the same thing, because obviously different ways to make you feel. But once like very specific kind of like culture, vibe, emotion, and it kind of just like totally washes over you. It's super
Dope.
Did you say what you play?
vocals.
Vocals, yeah.
I'm Ella, I'm from Michigan. Nowhere near Detroit, unfortunately. I'm from like Podunk, Michigan. Let's see, I'm a senior. I guess that wasn't a question. I do music supervision for film, and I'm a writer. And my favorite part about hip hop is like the narrative structure that it provides, and I also really enjoy all of the political resistance that's written into the history of it.
Do you mind telling them about your family background? 'Cause I think that's
Yeah, of
something
course.
Michigan.
My family is Lebanese, so Michigan has a huge Lebanese population, or just Arab in general. But yeah, my family is Lebanese Catholic, so a very specific sect of people.
Dope.
My name's Lena. I'm from Korea. I'm a piano principal, but I'm a singer and a writer and so I'm a producer. Yeah, I'm also very interested in history as well, and also I'm wanting to know like how to find a community, because I also like always feel like hip hop is like a very tight community, and it's like a very culture tight community.
That's dope.
My name is Lynn, and I'm from China, and I'm really interested about hip hop. And first, I like the vibe, and I also think because it can combine different cultures together, and it can show or add to it.
And what's your principal? So you know, what do you play? What did you do to get into school? What did you sing? Did you rap? Did you make a beat?
I can play piano.
Still making a decision. That's all right.
Gotcha.
All right, cool. So now, do we want to show the video first, or do you want to share some songs first? Share the song too.
I think what might be interesting is if I share some of the work from the book, because I think that might give us a good like starting place for conversation. So let's do that.
I see you have a yerba mate.
Yeah, and I am definitely a yerba mate drinker. Yeah, I saw yours. I love them all. My favorite is like the orange.
That's a hot take. I've never heard the orange.
Orange exuberance, but this is the mint.
Yes.
And it's like the smaller cans because they come in like a box.
Yeah, the ones that won't give you like a heart attack. This is.
It's cool. I love those, but when my fiance goes shopping, she's like, "We're gonna get these," because the other ones have a lot of sugar, and I'm like, "All right, we'll." I think, yeah, a lot of my the book that I wrote is not about like my life story, although there are stories about my life that are in here. When thinking about hip hop leadership, I wanted to talk about leadership values and the way that these values guide our decisions in our lives and in our culture. And so I started with 3 essential questions.
Can we pass the books out?
Yeah. Let's do that. Thank you.
And when Pierre arrives, just let me know. I'll have to run and get him. Because
Yeah, absolutely. I started with 3 essential questions. I think he's parking right now, Toki.
Okay.
Yeah. these questions were, how do these values show up in my personal life, right? In my practice as an artist? How, if I can recognize it within myself, then how do I also recognize it in my community? Are there examples of people or organizations that exist out there that are leading with values, right, in their expression of culture? And then if we can recognize it in ourselves and in our community, then when we look out at kind of the larger society, world that we live in, who are the folks who are demonstrating these values at that level? And so each chapter is about a particular set of values. And the chapter list is also the track list for the album. So there's that. Each chapter is also broken down into 3 sections, which kind of answer those questions. And so the first section of every chapter also shares a little bit about my experience in demonstrating these values, right? So that's where I would like to start. It's chapter 2. If you want to turn to page 23, we can start there. I haven't had a cool rap name since the 6th grade when I was hypotenuse. A hypotenuse is the longest side of a right triangle, and you calculate it using the Pythagorean theorem. It represented a third of the things that were important to me when I started rap: my family, school, and hip hop. My rap name at the time was meaningful and nerdy and appropriate, considering my friend group. My middle school friends and I picked all of our rap names out of textbooks. Deepmar was Decipher because of how he could break down bars. Vanderlee was Nimbo Stratus because his flow was like heavy rain and a lot to handle like storm clouds. We were all nerds. And even though my small class of 16 didn't always get along in activity prep, hip hop was something that brought us all together. We excitedly discussed the latest music videos every morning, and we would rip down the street team posters of the latest releases in the neighborhood because we wanted to ensure that everyone else was in the loop. During recess and lunch in between basketball and chess games, we would trade verses and freestyle our newest rhymes. Some of us, and I won't name names here, would memorize obscure mixtape raps and fronted like they wrote those raps. Whether the words were ours or not, we were all active participants in hip-hop culture. And that shared experience bonded 16 kids from all over the city who had different backgrounds, ethnicities, languages, and lived experience. Rap wasn't the only way hip-hop brought people together. The cypher experience could be seen across disciplines. When we shared our graffiti tags, dances, and Fruity Loop beats, we did so in community. We were close in proximity, age, and in spirit. We had shared values and goals, and we expressed those through this culture. As a child, I never questioned why I saw and heard a majority of black male voices rapping. I knew Lauryn Hill, Queen Latifah, Ladybug Mecca, and MC Lyte held it down for the ladies on the microphone. I saw women like Missy Elliott, TLC, and Aaliyah dance and perform raps and sing songs. I didn't know anything about the behind-the-scenes creative teams, women executives in the industry, or women producers and engineers. As a teenager, I knew nothing of gay people until the sister of a close friend came out to me to share that she was bisexual. I had never heard the term before and had to sheepishly ask her if it was slang for cool. She trusted that I was caring and responsible because of my raps. And because of my raps, I learned about an entirely new perspective and lived experience. Through this culture, like Socrates, I learned that I know nothing. Our individual and collective human experience is wide and vast. The only thing that seemed to matter was if you were cool. And what cool meant to me then and even today was creative, caring, accepting, curious, and supportive. You could be cool doing anything, but hip hop gave people a space, place, and community to demonstrate how cool you could be. So we'll pause there. I share that because in thinking about where the culture starts for me, you know, it started with my sisters and their lens, sharing music with me in, you know, their bedrooms. And the artists that we listened to at the time were all the popular artists that were on the radio, but there was something different about the messaging and the intent, and maybe it's because my grandma was super strict, you know, like a minister in the church, and was like, wouldn't let certain types of music in the house. But a lot of the messaging and the meaning and the lyrics of these songs really left an impression on me. And so when I started to write my first raps, and it's like the 6th grade, a lot of those raps really just mimicked what we heard on the radio. But as I got older and as I started to have conversations about what it meant to be authentic, in fact, the first conversation I had writing my first rap, my sister's husband, he sat me in their car, and I really wanted to rap for our 6th grade talent show. And he said, okay, cool, but like, what are you rapping about? You know, because if you try to rap, you know, the street stuff, he's like, that's not really who you are. You know, you got to be true to who you are. You can't front and pretend to be something you're not, because people then test you, right, to see if you're really that person that you're rapping in your lyrics. And he was like, man, if you love books, write about books. You know, if you love your community, write about community. If you love your family, write about that. And so my first lesson in hip hop was about authenticity. And as I got older and I'm looking for, you know, my people, my community, I learned a lot about how, you know, if we're a culture that values authenticity, right, not biting other people's rhymes, you know, being unique, having your own style, and all of that's super dope, then who are we to then judge people, right, who don't look like us, who don't speak like us, who come from different lived experiences and backgrounds, right? The Cypher was always a place where people could come together to really kind of learn from each other, right? And it's a give and a take, right? This call and response allows people to step up when it's time to, and to step back when, you know, they want to give space, you know, for others to be able to step, you know, and share their stuff and to share their story. And that tradition is like as old as time, right? Hip hop comes from this tradition, legacy, lineage of the West African griots who would travel from village to village, sharing these stories, these poems, right? And passing down this tradition through the word and through the drums. And we see that through like all of music, right? From like Negro spirituals to blues music, right? Jazz, you know, we've seen it in funk, soul, R&B, rock and roll, all the way up to like what we know as hip hop today. So I think for this first piece, I'd love to kind of start. It's a piece I use to introduce myself a lot, but it also requires some of this participation. So I'm including you, you know what I mean, in this first part. I'll teach you the hook. I promise it's simple, and you won't fail because we're gonna practice. It goes like this. This is straight from my book of rhymes. Then I need y'all to say, my book of rhymes. Cool. Yeah. We're gonna do it together. Cool. This is straight from my book of rhymes. 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 Y'all did good. That was pretty good. What's up, Pierre? How's it going? Glad you could find us. Feel free to, pull up a chair, have a seat wherever makes sense. We got some seats right here, too. What's going on, man? Cool. I went from Jamaica Plain all the way to Bodega Bay, things were straight. From 1987 and 98, then the hits came and it's changed with the quickness. When I was 12, my grandma's diagnosed with a sickness. See, books is black and white. My school was black and white. One of 13 blacks who could bridge that divide. No disrespect, my friends were upper middle class with intellect. Starting in class because being street was easy to expect. Black but not hood enough, smart but not good enough. Leader because I've lost so much that I could erupt. It's only a matter of time before I was out of my mind. Every summer was reckless. My mom was out of a job. Brothers in and out the house. Some were friends, others foes. Squares tried to keep me boxing. I stay on my toes, praying to the Lord. Is this my ceiling or my flow? Can't open the next door until the last one closed. Because this is straight from my book of rhymes. 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 I almost drowned when I was 7. I heard the waves that changed the ship's belly of the beast. I was losing it. Grandma sacrificed hospital nights was a crucifix. My mom was sacrificed by her dad on some voodoo shh. It seems like the dark runs in the family. Veins suffocate by blood clot when you hang with me. Stick and move, hit the kitchen stool, witch's brew. I got miles to go before I sleep. Comfortable, still I have no fear. Should have been dead, but it is so clear. There's something more that's meant for me than what I know here. I watched the sun grow into Apollo. Just because you claim to be a leader doesn't mean I will follow dreams stuck in between. Couple ounces in the bottle, barely hanging on now. Why would I care about tomorrow? Can tell my future bright with a past full of sorrow. I hope I can feel what's been hollow. So this is straight from my book of rhymes. 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 Now, the greener weights, you couldn't sleep away those dreamer days. You couldn't ride through Brownlee Heath without a key to stay. Summer heater blades, my OGs kept their beef away from the kids who couldn't claim the corners they patrolled. Had to move through cliques trying to crack the code. No one knew where I lived. See, that was tactical. I'm practically an anomaly, actual dramatic comedy. Miracle I made it out based on my geography. Constantly going back, I know my hood is proud of me, even when we once weren't free and not allowed to be. You see, the murals are coming down and Hollow became Whole Foods. I used to know all my neighbors and now I have no clue. Like the scar next to my left eye, I couldn't see this coming. Fighting to survive, that hated black kids busing. Ain't it something? My grandma owned the house when the neighborhood was Jewish, and now I can't recognize it as I walk through it. So this is straight from my book of rhymes. 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 Word.
Was that from your book of rhymes?
It's a medley. It's a medley of a bunch of verses. But, you know, when I was away in California for 10 years, I was feeling really nostalgic. And we were witnessing gentrification, you know, a lot of Bay Area folks who were moving to the city because they were getting priced out of Oakland and San Francisco and San Jose. And so they were moving to Sacramento, which is like the next closest major city. And, you know, we were seeing communities change, but I went out there to be in schools that was serving a population of students where 2/3 of the kids in elementary school weren't reading on grade level. And when you look at the history of Sacramento, it was very similar to the history of Boston as well. Certain communities were redlined in a way to keep just different racial groups outside of, you know, the mainstream economic and power structure. And so, you know, when you look at communities like Oak Park and like CV Circle in Sacramento, you realize that they're a lot like the history of Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, you know, here. And so, you know, feeling nostalgic, I started writing raps about what it meant to, you know, be home, what home meant to me. And I wanted to share that over music, right? Hip hop music that was jazz influenced, soul inspired. And so I worked on an album called Wonderland. And this album, it kind of like grew. When I created the album and I was ready to release it, it took me maybe 4 years to work on this project. We wrote the first song in 2016. And then when it was ready to come out, pandemic, you know? And so rolling out this record meant a complete like flip, you know, as to how people would experience the process. I released maybe my first mixtape 2013. You know, I tried to record my first album here in Boston in 2010. My friend's Mac crashed and we lost everything, you know, and so it was a couple of years before I had another shot to try it again. But going from like slapping the stickers on the CDs and buying jewel cases and printing the inserts at FedEx or Kinko's, you know, to then living in a world where, you know, we can't be, you know, face to face anymore. The hand-to-hand sales of CDs were so much more difficult to do. And so there was an opportunity there to start to create experiences and materials attached to the album that have really kind of informed the way that I've shaped my latest work. And so one of the first things I did was I created like a hip-hop lookbook, right? A book of lyrics with images that kind of match what the lyrics are talking about. And when I saw that there was interest in that, I created mini lessons, right? So a small curriculum, 20, 25 minutes that teachers could then use the songs and use an activity that's grounded in the songs so that kids can learn about, you know, their family trees and what community means and ways to be inclusive and all of these, you know, different kinds of values expressions. I won a grant for about $10,000, and we took that and we were able to produce a documentary called Wonderland. Wonderland was the name of the title. It's also the name of the documentary. I feel like this would be a great opportunity to kind of share some of it because I was able to bring together a bunch of creatives, activists, artists to be able to share some of the story of the community. So I'd love to be able to share maybe 12 minutes or so of the documentary with y'all right here. I brought it. Let's go to the beginning. And then I feel like in about 12 and a half minutes would be a good stopping point. It's my band full of my friends.
There were places in my city I never got to explore. The old pages in a book that were tattered and torn. I try to pick the roses, then remember the thorns. I'm a guy without knowing how I was born. This is for my sisters. I love y'all to death. You brought me so much joy and I brought you so much stress. Gosh, Reva Liz taught me how to forgive. And in my darkest moments showed me how to live. For my brothers, Patrick and Kyron. 4 Seasons was the illest track to rhyme on. B always been a shoulder to cry on. And K, you know I want you to fight on. To my aunties, nephews, and nieces, I miss all of y'all in pieces. If I was rich, I'd fly every weekend. No, I love you and miss you the deepest. To my mom, no, it hasn't been easy. But I'm glad we spoke the other evening. And my wife got the text you sent her. She loves you and I'm glad you met her. To my friends back home, you're my backbone. I love your stories, can't wait till we back home. You got married, started a business, shit, me too. I wish I had more time to see you. To my city, I love the gifts you gave me. Like when my OGs at the park would save me. Biking everywhere seemed crazy. but I learned to love it more strangely. I can't recognize my city from the TV. I met my first blonde in high school. I can't imagine life without seeing me. Funny how it all changed since I moved. I want to see it all back the way it was, but rose glasses exactly what nostalgia does. Things weren't as perfect as I thought it was. I had a lot of loss and a lot of love. I had a lot of pain and a lot of joy. I became a man when I was a little boy, making adult decisions as a youth. Time is where taught me a lot about the truth. Tell my auntie I'm coming back for some jerk chicken and more stories about my mom that I've been missing, and tales from the island that I've never been. I hope to go with Devin and Uncle Ken and bring join and bring the boys. Family reunion in Jamaica will be a story. The close of one book and we start another. We got the rest of the world to discover. Yeah.
In Sacramento and many places across the world, low-income communities have disproportionately experienced health, housing, and job insecurity during the pandemic. When the challenges of COVID-19 are compounded by the additional stressors that low-income communities face, then the solutions for COVID relief are often not enough to meet the need equitably. It is the responsibility of hip-hop artists to not only speak up for the marginalized, but to elevate the voices of those communities by sharing their platforms to create meaningful change. Telling people to hope and dream is not enough. But for me, being allowed to imagine a life of my choosing and then having the privilege to pursue that is something I don't take for granted. The challenges are hard enough, but I hope my story shows others that in spite of gentrification, absent parents, and traumatic loss, there's a future, a wonderland, if you will, that awaits them. Right now, we are standing in the middle of McClatchy Way, at the corner of McClatchy and 5th. That's what you see behind me. To my right, we've got the Mills, recent development on some infill. It was an empty lot, old factories. And to my left, we got the neighborhood of CV Circle, which has been here for decades. And I think it's really symbolic of the changing Sacramento that we see. You know, we've got a community here that's been super tight-knit, folks who don't have a lot, but they give a lot of love and support to each other. And then we have this new community of Bay Area transplants, empty nesters from Davis, and people who are just brand new to the city who may be unaware of the politics and the racialized history and some of the systemic oppression that's been used to create communities that we see here.
So how are students and families impacted by a changing Sacramento?
They're impacted bad because if Sacramento going to change, it's going to look at moving us out of here, moving the family out, and it's just not here. Low income is everywhere.
Our community leaders, they're trying to get rid of this place because they don't appreciate it. They just think it's a black guy in the neighborhood, in the community. People can look on it from the outside, they tear it down, but from the inside, you know, it benefits so many people.
If these parents and the kids get moved out and they're in a whole new neighborhood, it's going to affect the parents because these are parents that don't have vehicles. These are kids that don't have family that help them. The family is the school, the people at the school and what's in the community. So if they're trying to like move people around instead of just so they could demolish low income, it's going to be a big effect because right now we're already having a problem with homeless.
This is like the hub for everybody in Sacramento. Regardless of what neighborhood you come from, once you come to CV Circle, you had an opportunity to see something different. Not, you know, shoot 'em up bang bang. That's maybe how you feel when you arrive here, but when you see people aren't about that, people are about their grind here, trying to get up out of here, not even get up out of here and leave forever, but get up out of here and come back and help out, man, it kind of changes the mentality of a whole lot of people.
So if they come and going through all the low income and telling people that, hey, we're going to put you in a better place when we know they're not, that's going to be a big effect when the family moves with the kids or even senior citizens. And then you're going to come now and just move people out because they want to make Sacramento look like the Mill and Bowery and all this that's going on. They're looking at the money. It's not about the money. What about the people? Who's going to be here for the people?
We have been drowning, put under by currents conceived in the backspace of gentrification, race relations, passed us backwards, placed us in chains, strange fruit, don't grow on trees, but the scars are still there, passed us backwards, placed us in chains, strange fruit, don't grow on trees. We are broken, put under by currents conceived in the backspace of gentrification, our eyes glassed over, fascinated by fables, conversed in selfish whispers, secrets. They haunt us, skeletons, we have them. In the name of gentrification, segregations, race, relation. We are drowning, put under by currents conceived in the backspace of gentrification, put under by currents that we cannot see, pastored us backwards, placed us in chains, strange fruit from broken trees, but the scars are still there. I'm drowning.
I think the first thing to combat gentrification, not just here locally, but all over the world, is to recognize the voices of the people who live in these communities that are changing. We got to move away from that Christopher Columbus syndrome and start to think about the value that the people who are kind of native to these lands, the people who already existed in the community, we got to think about the value that they're bringing with just their being.
So how do we help people see Black and brown communities as assets, like as positive contributors?
So there's no question that the work and the value is there. We have to see it within ourselves, and we have to invest in our own communities. We can't expect them to do that shit for us, bro. Someone has to step up and make it cool to where local stuff and some of the dopest stuff comes from here. And that's our fault in our communities that we don't have the things that we have because we don't make that of importance. We need to make property of importance. We need to make knowledge of self and importance. We need to make knowledge of each other's cultures and have understanding. That needs to be an importance.
When I look at those communities, I don't see a disadvantage. I see our young people and their parents as extremely advantaged. And that's because they have to deal with scarcity. They have to deal with getting creative and innovative in a moment's notice. And sometimes it's for survival.
I think the youth, especially Black and brown youth, like they run into this consistent welcome mat of oppression, in the sense that they don't see them as assets, even if their job, let's say education, to help uplift and cultivate and develop that asset. For me to understand the value of someone, the closer I am to them in proximity, and not just like physically standing next to them, but proximity to their experiences and seeing the value in what they experience, the genius that exists in the perseverance and creativity that comes out of that, I think elevates possibilities of people seeing them as assets.
I never classify them as disadvantaged, ever. They're highly advantaged because of what these challenges, these added challenges, have the potential to develop in you if you don't look at them as something that deficits you.
Growing up as a kid, I had to pick my spots. Middle of 3 gangs, I had to pick a block. Watching mom on drugs, wishing this would stop. Sleeping on trains, hoping I don't miss my stop. There's a thin line between love and hate. Was you either at the table or on a dinner plate?
My friend Paige. starring in Kiki's new show. Yeah. So okay, this might be a good place to pause. Yeah. Appreciate you for playing that. The documentary is not like crazy long. It's like 33 minutes. So we just watched maybe the first like 12 minutes or so of it. Feel free to check it out on YouTube. So much of that like ethos, right, is like who I am and like what I value, right, as an artist, and the way I view just the responsibility of being an artist, right, and what that means for not just myself, but what it means for my community, because there are folks who don't have the opportunity or the privilege to create, and it's not that creativity lives in all of us, right? It's expressed in different ways, but I think sometimes the way that we see like these traditional mediums for creativity, right? Folks are like, I may not have the time to pick up a paintbrush or to start to learn an instrument, right? And things like that. But there's genius in navigating life through the struggle, right? There's a J. Cole line, right, about beauty in the struggle, you know, and recognizing that as a foundation for a lot of what, you know, we do in hip hop culture, I think is just it's an important place to start. When you think about where we go from here, right, and the way that hip hop has been commodified, commercialized, etc. These alternative narratives, these alternative stories are incredibly important. You know, promoting, if it's music or other kind of aspects of the cultural experience, because, you know, hip hop is more than just rap music. Rap music is part of it, but it's not the whole thing, right? There's all the things that kind of build cultures. You think about food, fashion, right? We have our own dances, you know. There's a musical styling. Knowledge itself is a core kind of foundation, you know, for hip hop culture as well. And so getting to this place where we can start there helps us really reimagine what's possible in our world. And so a lot of the work I was doing in like education, nonprofits, community spaces, etc., I was recognizing that the way we spoke in classrooms and on school campuses was very different than like the social justice spaces that we had in community and like activist circles that we had in community. And then in the hip hop space, there is this interesting ability to translate to people across all different kinds of backgrounds and industries. The easiest place to recognize hip hop's value, I think, is through a capitalist lens. It's like people see the dollar sign and they go, oh, of course it's valuable, but it's only valuable in how much money this generates. But when you imagine a world where that's not the priority, where the dollar isn't the priority, then it's like hip hop and its culture builds resilience. It empowers the individual, right, to see themselves differently and to transform their lives. Right, it provides us with an ability to advocate for others, right? Create space for others. It allows us to do so many of these other things. We had this conversation once about even hip hop as like medicine, as like a spirituality, right? As a philosophy. Right? And these things aren't driven by how much dollars, right, it makes. And so when you think about its ability to impact others, it's transformational. And I've always felt that when we look at leadership development, specifically the way that leadership development looks like in the corporate space, right? Like who gets recognized? Whose stories are we promoting? Who are we elevating into these roles as leaders? You know, there are 40 under 40s, you know, type list, the 30 under 30 list, right? In Boston, we have 150 most powerful or influential or something like that kind of list through Boston Magazine. And you'll never see like community folks, teachers, like, you know what I mean? Your grandma, your local bodega owner, right? You never see those kinds of folks on those lists. But if you own a Fortune 500 company, a sports team, or the president of a college or a university or a healthcare organization in Boston, you have a permanent place, you know what I mean, in these positions. And so I knew it was different, right? All of those people are connected to hip hop culture. They are teachers, they are dancers, they are MCs, they're DJs, they're community members, right? Malcolm Floyd played in the NFL. Now he teaches, you know, at the local high school, you know, for that community. When you look at these folks and you look at their ability to be leaders, to shape culture, there's gotta be a place where we amplify that. And so when I started working on this concept of hip hop leadership, I'd gone through a number of different leadership development programs. And I learned about this concept of values-based leadership. And I was like, that's a universal concept, right? It's a shame that this is gatekept behind the $8,500 program that I was a part of. There are other programs that are $13,000 or more, right, just to participate in. And I'm like, there's no way that we can't bring leadership to the people, right? When it already exists there, we need the language, right? We need a way to be able to talk about these things so that, again, more people are getting their flowers across the board. So I decided to then start amplifying those stories and start writing down examples, started naming what some of these values are and the stories I could tell based on my personal experience with these values and then my community's experience with these values. And so that's what you're seeing. An example of one of the ways that, you know, this is demonstrated, and again, thinking about, you know, what we heard about inclusivity. A friend of mine came to me a couple years back. She was organizing this event called the Unity Ball. It was an opportunity to celebrate Black and brown, queer and trans women who were community leaders but hadn't been, you know, honored and recognized, you know, for their contributions to the community. And she had asked a whole bunch of people, you know, if they'd be interested in performing. And there were a lot of Black men who like turned her down. And these were people who some who I knew were hip hop artists or spoken word poets. And when she asked me, I was like, yes, absolutely, no doubt. And when she asked me, well, why were you so quick? And some of these other folks were kind of hesitant. And I shared with her essentially what I shared there, you know, that story that's in the book. You know, how do we claim to be a culture that values all of these things, authenticity, inclusion, community building, empowerment, resilience, right? And then not recognize this whole group of people who also embody, right? You know, those values at the same time. And so then I wrote this piece, and this is not part of the hip hop leadership album, but I'll share it with you here because I wrote it specifically for that, but also to demonstrate, you know, the power of this culture, right? And it goes like, forgive me if I couldn't recognize the power and beauty that's in your eyes. I see strength in every tear that you cry. Know that I will always be here by your side. Imagine a world of acceptance and peace where all your wants and needs, you have what you seek, protected and respected by all your family. where you can just be free, free, free. You're special and you should know that this love is real. Committed to do no harm and doing more to heal. You're the light in these dark times I needed reveal. I was foolish, but I'm ready to know how you feel. Forgive me when I deserve it. Tell me when I don't. Sometimes we rebuild the ship just to keep it afloat. As part of me, I acknowledge that I needed to grow. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me most. So I promise to step up and be there for you. And step back when it's your turn to seed the soil. I share my home, my food. I'll be there for you. I commit to being an heir that'll be here for you. Bigger than classrooms, cash rules, and cash rules. Love is the only thing that's natural. Identify how you wish makes no difference to me. You deserve to be happy and free, free. Forgive me when I couldn't recognize the power and beauty that's in your eyes. I see strength in every tear that you cry. Know that I will always be here by your side. Imagine a world of acceptance and peace where all your wants and needs, you have what you seek, protected and respected by all your family, where you can just be free, free, free. Word. The power in storytelling. Who shared that, like, storytelling and narratives? Was that here on this side? That was you? Is one of your favorite things about, like, hip hop culture? It's one of mine too. And so the ability to, like, share these stories connects people, right? The music is dope. Like, beats are really awesome. You know what I mean? They create really special moments, you know, through the music. And so I don't want to downplay that at all. But when I think about what is it about hip hop that's allowed it to also spread across the globe, you know, and I know that music making people feel good is part of it, but I think that there's this other thing that happens where, because people can authentically be themselves, because people can include others as part of their process, because they can, bless you, you know, find stories and examples of resilience, of people who advocate, people who are truly innovative, right, in their community. Some really special things happen when those bonds are built. I was connecting with a professor, and, you know, we were talking about culture and why culture was so resilient, right? How it doesn't matter where you go, there's a through line that kind of connects people despite war, oppression, genocide, like all these things across the world. And he said that culture is resilient because it's relational, right? The power for us, the power that comes when we can connect with each other is something that there's not a government or a law or, you know what I'm saying, any of these kind of oppressive forces. You know, those things might slow down our ability to see each other or engage, you know, with each other. But the human ability to connect and to empathize, right, on a, you know, deep, almost spiritual level, is something that we all have the power and ability to do. Hip hop is like a vehicle, right, for us to be able to do that. That's not controlled by a government or, you know, a set of, like, specific laws, although it does have its own declaration of peace. I don't know if y'all have, like, talked about that at all. Back in 2001, there were about 300 delegates from the hip hop community that went to the UN and got hip hop recognized, right, as like a global entity, which is really cool. And they created a document called the Declaration of Peace with 18 principles, right? And it's how we know that, like, November is Hip Hop History Month, and, like, May 3rd is Rap Music Day, and there's, like, a Hip Hop Appreciation Week. But there are all these other things that help to kind of guide the culture, to kind of give people a place to really learn about it. That document is one of the few things that exists that explains to people what our culture is all about. People know peace, love, unity, having fun, right? Like that's core in terms of hip hop values, and that was a thing that was started really in the late 70s, 80s, kind of carried on into the 90s. Hip hop just turned like 50, a couple of years ago. It's what, 52, 53, maybe now. 50, yeah, something like that. When I think about how much we've learned, how much experience we've had, right? This book is an update, right, for our values as a culture. It's peace, love, unity, having fun, and it's authenticity and self-expression. It's inclusion. It's empowerment and resilience. It's our ability to collaborate. It's our ability to tell stories, to empathize, right? It's all of these things now at 50 that maybe this group of teenagers, right, from the Bronx didn't have, back then. But that's where really my work now resides, right? It's teaching, it's sharing about the book, it's bringing it to colleges, universities, and just different community groups, not just here locally, but really across the country. We had a book tour on the West Coast over the summer, and we look to bring the book to Texas at some point next year, Midwest, as well, a few other places. But the work of building culture, building community, is just like who I am as an artist and the kinds of things that I'm about and what my work really reflects. If you want to get into the music and the beats and all of that, it's cool. In the back of the book, when you open up this back cover right here, you get a QR code to the streaming link, right, for the album. And it'll take you to an app called Untitled. That way you don't have to stream through Spotify or any of those other kind of major platforms. If you don't have a paid subscription, you will always have access to the music, now that you have the book. There's a separate QR code for the lyrics there in case you ever want to kind of look at those and study those too. But yeah, that's the, I think that might be a good place to kind of pause. You've had a chance to kind of experience some of the music, the lyrics. You had a chance to see some of the like activists and community work. I'd really love to be able to kind of open it up for questions from the group with the time that we got remaining.
Yeah, we have about 35 minutes, so I just want to make sure everybody gets a chance to at least ask one question.
And I also want to introduce Pierre. Yeah.
So y'all, I'm Pierre Moore, and I believe that in the war against art, the artist will win. And that's kind of been my drive in creating in various mediums, is to just keep going, I've met a lot of my peers, all corners of the world, that face friction all the time just to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And your documentary, you're talking about the environment and how you can look at it as something detrimental, facing friction all the time. But when you face friction and you persevere, you come out polished, you come out smooth, you come out slick.
Mm-hmm.
So I just been persevering, and that's where I'm at now. I just released my first book with Destined to Shine publishing company. I'm going to be releasing a project next month, and the last 8 years I've been moving around like if I had a teleportation device, and the device is hip hop. Hip hop is the only culture you can go anywhere in the world and you're gonna find a hip hop head. Mm-hmm. And not only that, when you connect, it's the only culture where they'll invite you into their house and let you stay with them and just be there, Mm-hmm. I've been able to experience being in different countries on a perspective that, you know, just going somewhere you can't really get, like being somewhere who was born and raised there, and they're taking you to the overlooked places where things are constantly going on. So I'm just dedicated to continuing that and reminding people, like, there's this, it's like a super technology, you know? KRS-One says, like, hip hop, you can root it back to the original human culture, you know, like graffiti, writing on the walls. We've been painting on the caves since forever, you know? Just rap, like communication through rhythm around the fire, and, you know, mixing things that don't go together. All those things are like the foundation of what it is to be human, you know? So I think when we think about hip hop, embrace it and never forget the power it has to, you know, allow us to persevere, you know, as a species, really.
That's fine.
Can I piggyback off?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll pass this curriculum around if y'all want to, you know, take a look, you know what I'm saying? And then we can also,
Some in opposite directions.
sure, yeah, absolutely.
So I connect to that in a very intimate way. I got off the plane about 15 hours ago. 15 hours ago from Lithuania. So I was out there performing master classes, things like that. And the thing that I've noticed going to all of these different communities around the world, that it's always the young people that nobody wanted to listen to that decided that we are going to make space for ourselves. And when we actually take up space to do our version of how we see society, it makes it better for everybody else. And there was something specifically that you touched on that I think kind of relates to this all. I remember walking into back when T-Mobile was Sprint. I walked into a Sprint and somebody walked up to me and was like, "Hey, that's the rapper." And they're like, "Whatever." And laid behind the counter, I was like, "You don't look like a rapper." And I said, "Good."
Yeah.
Which I can kind of expect somebody to go, "You don't look like an author, or you don't look like an educator." What do you have to navigate as maybe not the typical educator, not the typical?
Yeah, a bunch of like doubt, disbelief, and like institutional rejection. But it's, you know, I'm okay with that, because when you flip like who you're looking for acceptance from, and it's like not those people or not those organizations and institutions, then it's like, oh, like the people love you, you know what I mean, for you showing up as your authentic self and for caring, right? And I think that's the thing that I've just found the most success in, is showing up as somebody who is hip hop, non-traditional thinker, non-traditional experience, but is somebody who is also like a resource catalyst, because I problem solve in a way that pulls even more resources and people in than going the traditional route and method, right? A great example, I'm teaching right now in Lowell at an alternative like charter school for kids who have dropped out of Lowell High and are getting, you know, credits for their high school diplomas and GEDs. We just had our student showcase on Monday after the first semester for this class on the creative economy, right? We've brought alums who are artists, the local studio, community folks who are multifaceted creatives. There's one guy in Lowell, Baca, you know, he's a rapper, a singer, a producer, a vegan chef, and a personal trainer. You know what I mean? And so he provided food, for our showcase. So Ripe Studios, which has started to kind of go viral for some of those freestyle like rap videos with the orange background. Instead of going to them to try to figure out studio time or to get something in that way, we're developing an internship program for my students who are getting ready to, graduate and leave our school to then be able to kind of intern, gain some real working experience, and learn about the music industry and business by being at a really high quality professional studio space, right? And so all of these different kinds of resources are not something that maybe the principal would have considered before, right? But being hip hop, being a creative, and walking into a space and saying, I see what's here, right? I recognize, the incredible value of all the things and the people that's here. When you start to ask the question of like, what's not here, right? What's missing from the space that could add value to the space? It flips that dynamic and allows for folks to think about solutions to different problems and issues, differently. Hip hop for me is like one of the most transformational tools for justice and equity that exists, if you allow it to be that, right? And sometimes people will box it in and be like, oh, it's just music, or you should just come in to just sing and dance or whatever. But when you say, no, actually there are, and I write about this in the book, there are hip hop artists who are now elected officials, right? There are hip hop artists who are writing policy. Y'all know the qualified immunity for police officers here in the country that protect them in cases of like police brutality and stuff like that. My friend who's a DJ, he created a Black Bill of Rights, a set of policy recommendations to combat that, and is working with the ACLU to, enact those policies and put them in place in the state of California. I was working with Martha Diaz, right, on creating and it's not just like me and her. This me, her, and like a group of maybe like 25 to 30 other hip hop artists and educators in California. We got together with the State Department to create a teaching credentialing pathway for hip hop artists to then become classroom teachers, right? Within the career technical education. So instead of going to like wood shop or metalwork, you could take a music industry class taught by somebody who's like a professional artist, right? And that also solves like the issues around teacher diversity and recruitment and like hiring Black men in education. Like a whole bunch of stuff that solution would be able to, really address. But again, it's like if you have people in place who recognize the value and willing to think outside the box and approach problem solving with that hip hop mindset, it can, really create some really cool things. So yeah, that's some of the stuff that I face, but also I know that, the people that I'm looking for are also looking for me. And so anytime somebody's like, oh, this isn't working out or whatever, it's like, it's cool. I'm going to go somewhere where I know that this is going to, you know what I'm saying, be a hit. Also, part of my work is like building the army, right? Like identifying who the next generation is to carry on other elements for this work. My work is to like teach, inspire, right? To activate people in this way. But there's certain things I just definitely can't do. I can't code. I can't, you know what I mean? All these other things. So, but if a conversation with me helps to inspire somebody to create something new, right? Or to think about the world differently and then like work to address it, then I've done my job. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, whenever I've run into those types of issues, that like hip hop mindset and the Tupac quote of like, you may not change the world, but you might spark the mind of the person who will, is how I can like overcome a lot of that stuff.
And we have about 25 minutes.
Let's do it.
So maybe a couple minutes.
And I'll try to keep my answers a lot shorter. Yeah, thank you so much.
I was just wondering,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned in the documentaries Christopher Columbus syndrome in regards to
Mm-hmm.
gentrification. I was wondering if you could expand on
Yeah. The idea that like folks who are moving into a city or a town and they are discovering the things that make that place cool when the locals already know, like this is our spot. Like this is I think in today's world, you'll see the influencers, right? Who go from like neighborhood to neighborhood. They're like, I'm going to put you on to this thing. And it's like, yeah, but like you pronounced the name wrong. You said it's the first, or you know what I mean? Like you're giving out like misinformation because, you know, you're not allowing somebody to guide you in to that community. And I'm all for like exploring and, you know, that kind of thing. I'm not saying people shouldn't do that, but there's a difference when you are doing that and you're careful about like what you claim credit for, right? And so it's like, and your ability to also acknowledge the folks who are there and the value that they bring, right? So if somebody recommends, you know, you a restaurant, or if you know a place is like a local's, you know, favorite, or whatever the case might be, I think it's just being aware of like language and positionality and all that kind of thing. You know, that's really important. Christopher Columbus ignored all of that, right? And other folks who I think approach gentrification and a whole bunch of other issues with a colonial mindset, they miss the value in the people who are overlooked, right? And often forgotten, or the people who are maybe not in a position of power to like name something, you know? So yeah, that's a little bit about that.
Next
Mm-hmm.
question.
Yeah, what are some challenges that you kind of found in representing Boston, which is far from like a hip hop legacy city?
Yeah. The national perception of Boston is through its sports. You know, they're like that's a hard thing to combat, because there's a multi-million-dollar media industry that is shaping a narrative about who Boston is and like what its people are about. Not saying that racism isn't an issue here and hasn't, you know, historically been part of, you know, what's shaped this place, because all of that is true. But I go weeks without seeing white people. Like and that's so different than what you think of when, you know what I'm saying? If you're from somewhere else and you think about Boston, you might think about, oh, Harvard or MIT or some of the schools, you know, but when you're here, you're like, that's across the water. That's Cambridge, you know what I mean? Like it's in the area, but it's not quite, right? And so there are these nuances. I grew up in a neighborhood that's predominantly Puerto Rican, Dominican, Cuban. You know, my family is one of two Jamaican families, like in, you know, the radius of a couple blocks. But, you know, Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, Haitian, Cape Verdean, West African, bunch of Nigerian, you know what I mean? Like a bunch of people from Trinidad and Tobago. Like there's so many cultures and kinds of people who are represented there, but their stories aren't amplified or told in that way. And so I think the biggest like hurdle and the biggest challenge is getting folks to understand that there is this other Boston that has its own rich cultural history, right, and diversity. Boston Public Schools has 186 languages that are spoken just within the school district, you know, and I don't think people know that, again, like on a national level. So I think the other thing is like, what are our vehicles that kind of talk about our culture and can amplify it, you know, in that space, national, international space. You know, we haven't had very many content creators go viral. You know, we don't have a music podcast that is heard outside of maybe 30 square miles. You know what I mean? We don't have a magazine or a media like publication in that sense that talks about a lot of what's happening locally outside of the biggest is the Globe. But like, name the next. You know, we haven't had anything like that since The Source. You know, and The Source was read everywhere. You know, but with a decline in print media and all these things, the digital space exists, and for us to break through, it just requires a more concerted effort, right? It's got to be like 500 to 1,000 people, all saying the same thing before people start to think about us a little bit different. Mm-hmm.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, please, because you're in Houston, so
I'm in Houston, but I'm from Boston, and every time somebody hears that I'm from Boston, they're like, "There's black people in Boston?" And then I have to go down like a whole history list, starting from Crispus Atticus, the first black man that was a martyr in the Revolutionary War, on, and just educate folks. But the perception of Boston as a city for creativity, for music, for ingenuity, for multimedia, I think is shifting. Definitely different than it was 10 years ago. And I'm proud to be a part of that legacy and a part of that narrative shifting. 10 years ago, we couldn't name young people that are Grammy nominated that we were just talking about that are literally our mentees, and they're seeds that were planted a decade ago in terms of creative community that started in underground scenes that have changed names and changed places that used to be in abandoned buildings and that had no health codes, to seeing people that are our peers, that are on Grammy committees, that are regular, performers for the Celtics, that are have multiple plaques for being music executives, to people like myself who have traveled across the country, danced for Grammy Award-winning artists, and been on BET, MTV. So we do have a community that is interconnected, that is multi-generational, and across different ethnicities that are from Boston and that are proud to say that we're from Boston, and even if we leave, we always come back. So there is that part, and I think that that's different because sometimes people, they see their city as a place to escape or to get out of, like especially if you come from a neighborhood like mine. I mean, I'm from Dorchester, but I claim Roxbury too, and some people, they get out of an environment and they don't want to come back. There's shame involved, or they want to distance themselves, but I don't find that to be the case. I feel like the people that were formed and informed here, they come back and they give back to the communities that poured into them. And so you say that there's not like huge platforms that don't go out of a city radius, but I see that changing. I do see some things starting to pierce through social media to a larger audience, especially just in the last year, Boston being like a more of a tour stop for artists. Boston being more interesting in terms of conferences and different people with higher follower counts or whatever finding an interest here, and so I see that continuing to grow, especially the more this next wave of artists continue to become stars in their own right. It amplifies, like we're talking about, and like legacy. My legacy is not just the legacy of one, but the legacy of everyone that's connected to you. So as we all rise, I think that the perception of Boston will continue to grow.
Can I add to that real quick? So I'm not from Boston. I'm based here, and I want to stay based here. I think Boston, you mentioned a lot of people are doing tour stops here. I think people are looking at the data that before wasn't as visible, and they're seeing that Boston hits all these points, right? So I've noticed this in like medium small-sized cities with a large historical background. We're talking Boston, Barcelona, Brussels. They all feel like a portal because when you look at the demographics of who's there, it's almost like a piece of every part of the world is there. You never know who's going to pass through this portal. So it's like, you know, places like Barcelona and Brussels, you could just go there and, you know, like a few years back, randomly Kanye West, you know, now he's not the best representation of an artist using the platform to expand, but he was going to places like these, you know, even London, people forget that's the sister city of Boston. London has the problem of the size, right? Same with New York. New York is really 5 cities propped up next to each other, so you can't really compare. But that, you know, that size that Boston has compared with Barcelona, parts of London, is like, once you start to really document it and show it, it's a place that people want to be because you can be in so many places at once, you know.
And just recognizing we have 10 minutes, so make sure everybody else gets a chance to ask a question.
I was just wondering if there's anyone that stands out to you as like a mentor or somebody you learn a lot from, or a teacher.
Yeah, I think my mentors come in like all shapes and sizes and experiences. I think the biggest influence in my life is my grandma. You know, she was a nurse and a minister and somebody who just cared deeply about education and giving back to community. You know, it's a huge part of her life, and so, you know, a huge person like that. I think different kind of stages and phases of my life, there were a number of different folks. I think, you know, people like Dr. J. Williams, who teaches this hip-hop culture in a new economy course at Emerson. But he was in the like videography space. He interned for like Jesse Terrero, who did a bunch of like music videos for like Fat Joe, 50 Cent, a bunch of Latin artists, you know what I'm saying, back in the day. But he's somebody who I look at as like breaking through, you know what I'm saying, in that hip hop education space. Toki's another one of those people, you know, that I look to. When you look at his work, you know, it's not just local, it's global. He just got back from Lithuania, but, you know, that's not the only place he's been. It's China, it's Africa, right? It's like all these other places, you know, around the world. I think that kind of thing is really dope. Yeah, so there are people who I look to who are, I think, just advancing the work. There's a lot of, you know, other folks who I really look to and kind of take cues from. You know, sometimes they are people, sometimes it's like books that I'm also reading, you know, that really give me a lot of information and guidance. Read a book recently, 4 Disciplines of Execution. This is a book I've read previously, but I had to kind of come back to it as I was resetting some new goals and like, you know, looking at what I want to do and how I want to do it. So again, yeah, like I think it's a great question to ask in terms of like mentors, but I think that there's so many people, you know. Yeah. And sometimes it's like for different things, right? Yeah. Sometimes you need a business mentor. You know, when I was like, I'm working on this book, I was like, Des, I don't know anything about publishing. You know what I mean? Like, can you help me? And so then Des became a mentor and a coach and a guide, you know, in that process. And we've known each other for a long time as artists and creatives who are kind of working on, you know, some of the same similar value type work. Yeah, and then getting into you know releasing the book. It's like, oh, I gotta become a student, kind of learn this, you know, to be able to advance it. So it's a good question.
How much time do we have left?
7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm trying to make this short. So kind of like relating to what we were talking about in our last class, I think I'm curious because your rap is like super poetic. So I'm curious to see like what your take is on how hip hop is evolving now, and like is it better, worse, like positive, negative, just like I'm curious to know.
Hmm. If you know where to look, it's amazing. It's like some of the best like it's ever been. You know, if you know where you're looking. If you're only getting your stuff from like the Billboard Top 40 or whatever, I'm sorry, you're missing out. You're missing out. But if you don't know, you know, artists like Joe Saza or Maceo Mays, right, and people like Clark D, right, who are local, who are here, and there are so many others, Key, Oompa, Cake Swag, Brandy Blaze, like there's so many people. Then you're missing how the art form is evolving, you know, and how even like, you know, these young creatives who are emerging early stage in their careers are evolving the techniques, you know what songs sound like, right? It's not like some of the stuff is like not one genre, like it fits in like hip hop rap, but it's also more than that. At times it's punk rock, at times it's this, at times it's that. And so if you're paying attention and you're involved in like the local scene, and it's typically true in many other communities as well, then you'll probably find your next favorite artist, the next best artist, before they blow up and hit that stage. Nadine El Ruby, you know what I'm saying? She was here, and now she's in New York doing some incredible things as a Sudanese artist, you know, hip hop artist, and she's killing it. You know, I think she was also like singing backup for Mustafa the Poet on NPR's Tiny Desk. You know, she's her own artist in her own right, but to watch her grow and evolve, and she's doing festivals all over in the Middle East, London, Toronto, New York. Like she's doing her thing, you know. So it's here and it's really good. Yeah.
5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Get your participation points.
I'm really, 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 really bad at forming questions.
It's okay.
So bear with me, but when it comes to like the culture of hip hop, how it's like tight knit,
Mm-hmm.
and that there are multiple, you know, ethnicities, backgrounds, races, etc. Is there any like tumult within like I don't want to say not like feuds, but does anyone like is it really super tight knit in the way that everyone loves each other or not?
Not everybody loves each other all the time, and that's fine. Huh? No.
Oh my gosh,
I'll
really bad one with like
The long hair.
oh
Yeah.
There are some people within hip hop who aren't really hip hop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What's it, imposters?
Yeah. I'll say this. I think if you're about building the culture, then your value set and like ethos is about bringing more people together than it is about like things that divide people. I think that there are though real things that like split people. It is like behaviors, right? Or just like relationship things. Like people fall out, they might have disagreements. You know what I mean? Like, so there are some of those things that cause some of those rifts. But that's not different than like being at school. You know what I mean? Or being like, name a community, right? Like if you go to a church or a temple or whatever, like not everybody like may like each other. But if there's a common set of values that are bringing people together, then folks will continue to show up.
So no, like, I don't know if there's Lithuanian hip hop, but I'm sure there is.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no like, you know, divide between Lithuanian hip hop and
I can tell you there are situations like there are going to be divides between Lithuanian hip hop and Russian hip hop because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of Ukrainians moved to Lithuania. So there's like,
Mm-hmm.
and Russia everyone had occupied Lithuania up until 1991. So it's like you're going to have strife, racial
Yeah.
strife, all those things that existed before, and then there's this new generation of people that's either trying to break the stereotype, or break the old rules, or they adopt those old rules. Now the question becomes, how do I define hip hop? Because if you're not unifying people, and part of my foundation of hip hop is that you unify people, you're not practicing hip hop if I'm continuing to divide people.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's interesting because then those two cultures could end up in the same concert.
Yeah.
But what's being said at that concert will also really impact the way people experience the room. Right? So if your language as an artist is divisive in that way, then like you're gonna see that split, right?
You even see that within, if I'm from Jersey and you're from Brooklyn and we're at the same show, and like, so is it anti-hip-hop for me to have beef with the Jersey rapper?
Is it?
You know what they do in New York?
No, I mean,
everybody they don't like Queens and hip hop.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
and
like, let's forget about Queens.
yeah, and I think it's also understanding like, is this beef being fabricated, or is this like real? Like, does it have deeper like implications, right? You'll never catch me on a show with like a MAGA hip hop artist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just never gonna happen. Like, I will never.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I know you're about to end the class, but I did want to just bring back up something that you said earlier, which is that rap and hip hop are not synonymous. That rap is a part of hip hop, but they are not one and the same. There are people that claim to be rappers that are not representative of hip hop culture. There are people that use hip hop or use rap as a tool to make money, a tool to chase clout, that have no respect for the people that came before them and no respect for their peers. Don't think that the rules or any type of like code apply to them. So just like keep that in mind. And with your question in mind, somebody could consider themselves a rapper and not an MC.
Yeah.
They're Tom McDonald.
Right. Locally, though, you'll find some really amazing experiences where people, even if they make different like styles, right, of rap music or hip hop music, you could put like 500 people in the same room and it'll be peace, love, chicken grease, and everybody will like go from deep, emotional, soulful stuff to like hype. I'm like trying to tear the roof off of unity, you know what I mean? Turned up music. And so like, you can have a really eclectic mix of folks who are from here and they'll all enjoy each other and like, cause we're all kind of pushing the same thing. Yeah.
Let's give it up.
Appreciate it. And I can hang out for a few more minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's the next class that's coming in about 10. But if we want to find you online, where do we find you?
It's Paul Willis is Hip Hop at everything. So that's Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. It's my Cash App. It's my Venmo. It's like, it's my also my Gmail. You know what I mean? It's Paul Willis is Hip Hop. Because there's like a Paul Willis pig farmer and like a Paul Willis cultural theorist. If you've never Googled yourself, you should probably do that because then you'll see. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, but there's no other Paul Willis in the world who raps. So if you find one, I will battle him. But for now, you know what I'm saying? I'm Paul Willis is Hip Hop. That's everything, everywhere. And if you're interested in hip hop leadership, and learning more, we got a website, hiphopleadershipbook.com.
You have any shows coming up?
Yes, Saturday. This Saturday, I'm going to be performing in Chelsea at an art gallery. It's this open mic called Verb Flow Vision. And I'm really excited about that. We are also asking folks to bring canned goods and donations for one of the micro pantries in Chelsea. Because the show is right before kind of the holiday break, want to see if we can stock it up and, take care of some folks in that way. And if you sign up for the mic, then it's free. You know what I'm saying?
And I would say, Chelsea is not too far away.
Verb Flow Vision, but it's also on my Instagram, so if you want to.
So you can probably get to Chelsea in 20, 30 minutes?
Yeah, it's if that. You catch the freeway at the right time, and you'll get there even faster.
I highly encourage you, if you really want to know about hip hop, get over to this campus. And
Yeah. I have a show December 16th. There's a group of musicians, I guess. They do a social justice themed music show called Which Side Are You On? Where we have to do a cover of a social justice song and then an original song. And they do it with artists of like multiple genres. And I think that's like down the street from here. I can get that and send it in. And you have something.
Yes, tomorrow and every other Friday, if you want to experience hip hop at the ground level, firsthand, just pull up to the Armory in Somerville. You get on the Green Line, get off of Magoon Square, it's like a 10-minute walk. And what we do is, it's just holding space. We have producers come through with beat machines, computer, whatever they play off of. They plug in, they play. It's like a cipher of the beat makers. And then we also have mics. People freestyle, do pieces. So it's like a live, just hip hop incubator, really, you know, where people can share what they're working on, meet other people who, you know, are looking for things to go to, and just hang out. You know, it's cold outside, don't let that stop you. We got heat, we got bean bags, we got tea, and great music. And like, that is a magnet right now. Like, all the producers who've been in their house, behind the screen, nowhere to go, they're like, I'm gonna go to this at least every, you know, other week. To have that, you know, consistent spot to be in community. So pull up 7 to 9 tomorrow.
And if you like pull that into a message, I'll make sure you email everybody.
Okay, I got you. How much longer are you in town for? Okay, do you have anything coming up?
No.
Okay.
Family. I might do like one more writing workshop before I leave.
Okay. If y'all are ever interested in publishing, Des is amazing to work with, but also a lot of the folks that you've had a chance to support are first-time authors. You know, like, this is my first time going through the publishing process. This is your first book. And you've done workshops for people who are just interested in learning what the process is like. In case you ever see that as part of your future, you know what I'm saying? While she's in town. Cool. Appreciate y'all. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. Yes. I'm spent. Yes. But the rest of the time I'm here, I'm still working on trying to stay on top of that.
Yes.
About to do after this. You guys eat lunch yet?
I haven't either, so I'm down to do that.
Let's go eat something. You guys want to stay around here? Or you want to go to?
I'm gonna have to move my car anyway. I got you.
Yeah, I have your books in the bag, and I thought I brought it with you, and I got here, I was like,
It's okay. When I saw him yesterday, I was like, I should have brought your book, and I completely did not.
Yeah, likewise. I'm flying through Somerville. Well, I'm gonna be on a plane in like 10 hours. Like, what time? I gotta catch a flight tomorrow.
11. Yeah.
11 at night?
In the morning. I'll get my daughter. She was like live back and forth.
Okay, well, so maybe not tomorrow then, but
next one. I'll come to the next one.
nice to meet you.
Nice. I see you all the time on the internet. Well, your face and name pops up.
I do pop up sometimes.
Brother, appreciate you.
That's amazing.
No, it's amazing to have you.
Yeah.
We still have stuff.
All sorts of stuff. This guy would also be an incredible producer for you if you're thinking about getting into.
Yes, you don't know that part of me yet, but I look forward to hearing.
Are you running?
Yeah.
Hey, let's go.
It's really nice to meet you guys.
It's really great to meet you too. Thank you so much.
Check in